Well, it's now officially, as we call it, the Schumer Shift Sham Show. It is now proceeding in the U.S. Senate, as you see on your screen. While most of you are likely working today, I want to bring you the full comprehensive rundown, all that has happened earlier, what is ahead in this process, why it matters or doesn't matter. The Democrats, of course, they have been led by somebody who's compromised in this very case, somebody who's lied about this very case. I call him the congenital liar. That would be Adam Schiff and his comrades. They have literally been spewing BS for hours and hours. It is still going on. We're going to point out something the rest of the media will never tell you. The many lies that were actually told today. We'll give you the truth. We'll give you the facts. We'll bring it to you night after night. We will give you the insight. We'll give you all the day's developments. And sadly, we'll talk about what is a great divide in this country as a result of this. Like last week, while the president did what he was doing, what he said many people were saying was impossible. Last week, you remember, the president got a 2-year, $220 billion trade deal with China. That greatly benefits American, farmers, American workers, service industry, the energy sector, protecting and creating jobs in manufacturing, jobs we were once told are never coming back, and helping to save jobs in our great auto industry here in America. $220 billion over 2 years. At the same time, simultaneously, what was Nancy Pelosi doing? Solemnly and prayerfully smiling and taking pictures of her and what really are her do-nothing Democratic colleagues and giving out, remember, the commemorative impeachment pins of hers. Now, while all eyes were on the Schumer Shift Sham impeachment show, we will show you what the president was actually doing today, a tale of two Americas. We have a lot of news tonight. Let me dip in right now. This is Pat Cipollone, the White House counsel, up again today.
It's an organization that works for Congress. Do you know who disagrees with the GAO? Don't take it from me. They do. They sent you articles of impeachment that makes no claim of any violation of any law. By the way, you know what also doesn't? You can search high and low in the articles of impeachment. You know what it doesn't say? Quid pro quo. Because there wasn't any. Only in Washington would someone say that it's wrong when you don't spend taxpayer dollars fast enough, even if you spend them on time. Now let's talk about the Judiciary Committee for a second. 2 days in the Judiciary Committee. 2 days.
All right, as warranted, we will dip in and out, but we're not going to torture you with. And although I will say Pat Cipollone, Jay Sekulow, and the president's team were pretty amazing today. We'll show you the highlights of all of this. A lot of this, though, to be very, very blunt, is pointless, monotonous, redundant. And there is really absolutely nothing new in terms of what we know as it relates to Ukraine and impeachment that we don't already know. Now, only now it is real. It will have real consequences on the rule of law, the power of the presidency, executive privilege, and the country and our future. This has been a 3+ year, don't let anyone else convince you otherwise, of what really has resulted in a never-ending temper tantrum by Democrats that have done nothing that I can think of to serve you, the American people, and I mean nothing. Can you think of a single thing that they have done for we, the people? Have they made you more safe and secure in your home? Have they created jobs and prosperity for the American people? Well, after 8 years of Biden-Obama, things weren't working out very well. We're going to show you all that the president has done in a few minutes, and it is deep and it is profound, and it has been under very difficult circumstances and a never-ending series of attacks and allegations and impeachment from starting since 2 days after he got elected. Then, of course, we have the propaganda state TV media mob, friends of all things radical, extreme, and socialist. All of this culminating in this, what is an unconstitutional abuse of power by Congress. None of what has gone on today and what they are doing is warranted. None of it. None of this is good for the country. Everyone in the Senate knows how this will end. You at home know how this will end. There is no suspense. There's no mystery. Question only will be, the only mystery is a matter of when. There will be drama, and we'll carry it at times about whether witnesses should be called and the drama that could cause real permanent damage to the office of the presidency. That would be a fight on executive privilege that even George Washington used. And in 287 days, I have really good news tonight. You, the American people, thankfully, and I mean that, you get the final say. In 287 days, you can shock the world again. You, the American people, in one sense, are the real jurors, and in my honest opinion, you never take a jury for granted. The Democrats have overreached. They have done nothing to serve the American people. They abuse power, and what they're doing is unconstitutional. It is sad. And this impeachment charade is an exercise in futility, and it is only a matter of time before the president will get acquitted and vindicated. And let me be clear. The Democrats, they do not have a case. And in just a few short minutes, their half-baked arguments were literally ripped to shreds. We just see Pat Cipollone up there. Let's give you a little background of what was unfolding earlier today by the president's, for the first time, the president's defense, the president's expert legal counsel. Let's take a look.
Mr. Schiff also talked about a trifecta. I'll give you a trifecta. During the proceedings that took place before the Judiciary Committee, the president was denied the right to cross-examine witnesses. The president was denied the right to access evidence. And the president was denied the right to have counsel present at hearings. That's a trifecta. A trifecta that violates the Constitution of the United States. We don't waive executive privilege. And there's a reason we keep executive privilege, and we assert it when necessary. And that is to protect the Constitution and the separation of powers.
Let's remember how we all got here. They made false allegations about a telephone call. The President of the United States declassified that telephone call and released it to the public. How's that for transparency? Overwhelming evidence to impeach the President of the United States. And then they come here on the first day and they say, you know what, we need some more evidence. And the American people won't stand for it, I'll tell you that right now. They're not here to steal one election, they're here to steal 2 elections.
As these events were unfolding today, mark this down. This is the very first time the president's legal team has had any opportunity to defend him in Congress. Senate Majority Leader McConnell, he is following the precedent set in the Clinton impeachment trial. Each side fairly will get 24 hours to present their case. That will be followed by 16 hours of questions. Now, let's compare that to what happened in the House. Remember, all the precedent that was set, all the considerations that were given to Bill Clinton and his legal team were all kicked to the side. They didn't even have a formal vote. It wasn't the result of any independent investigation. It was, as we now know, crafted in secret in the basement of the House. Now we know that, yes, the congenital liar Adam Schiff lied. Oh, we'd love to hear from the whistleblower when his office had contact with the hearsay whistleblower, non-whistleblower. And then they auditioned witnesses. Then they cherry-picked the evidence, what they would leak. Why? To propagandize you, the American people. The majority of House Republicans were blocked, or in one case, actually forcibly removed from Schiff's basement behind closed-door audition proceedings. The president's legal team was never allowed to participate. That was not the case with Bill Clinton. They were not allowed to present evidence or call witnesses or craft a defense, as was granted Bill Clinton. The president was afforded no due process, no basic fairness. The process was rigged from beginning to end. Every single due process consideration that Republicans under Newt Gingrich gave Bill Clinton and his legal team and his attorneys were denied this president and this president's attorneys. And because Democrats wanted to enjoy their long Christmas vacation, they had to urgently and solemnly and prayerfully ram through 2 bogus articles of impeachment in record time. They had to get it done, urgent, 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 so they could go on vacation and then hold it back for a couple of weeks. And now, what do we see today? Whining and moaning and complaining that the Senate trial isn't fair. Really? We're going to get lectures on fairness and due process from the people that gave no due process to the president in the House? Wow, pretty arrogant. Take a look.
Leader McConnell is plotting the most rushed, least thorough, and most unfair impeachment trial. in modern history.
To be debating whether you should allow witnesses is to be debating whether you should have a cover-up, by definition. There's no trial in this country in which you wouldn't admit the relevant witnesses, in which it's even a question.
If the House cannot call witnesses or introduce documents and evidence, it's not a fair trial. It's not really a trial at all. Leader McConnell's resolution would turn the trial process on its head.
I thought this was a slam-dunk case. They didn't call the witnesses that they're now demanding to be called. They have the sole power to impeach. They think the U.S. Senate now should spend months doing their constitutional job, what they have the sole power to do. They want the so-called evidence entered into a record. They want all new witnesses. They didn't call witnesses. They failed to subpoena, brought before the Senate. Senate should do their job. They want special treatment. That's not how it works. We have a Constitution. In it, it is very clear. The House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment, not the Senate, the House. They impeached it. They impeached the president. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. That doesn't say anything about impeaching or investigating or doing the House's job or well, making a mess out of the garbage that they presented to the Senate. They said it's a slam dunk. Now the House managers, they've got their impeachment. They have their trial. Everyone's sworn in, dressed up, and ready to go. Present your slam dunk case. Let me speak directly tonight to you, the American people, because a lot of you have Republican representatives in the Senate. Some of them, I would argue, are pretty weak. And some of them are willing to lend credibility to this unconstitutional role that the House is trying to impose on them because they didn't do their job, at least to the extent they feel confident about their articles of impeachment. Now, if you give the House Democrats, if your representatives allow the House Democrats the special treatment they don't deserve, that's unconstitutional, you are literally a part of what is a charade that will live in perpetuity, that is ripping this country apart. You, your representatives, your senators will be adding legitimacy to this unconstitutional corruption. And by the way, only 287 days before a presidential election, and the final jurors in this will be the American people. No Senate Republican, your representatives that you put in the Senate, should give legitimacy to this slimy, compromised, congenital liar and his merry band of do-nothing Democrats who spearheaded this entire thing. They've been calling for impeachment 2 days after the president's elected, through 2017, through 2018, and all through 2019. Have they done anything for we the people? They're supposed to be our servants. The beady-eyed lunatic you've been watching on your screen all day is perhaps, well, in my view, the worst liar in all of politics. He said he had significant evidence for 3 years, he told us, of Trump-Russia collusion. That was a lie. 4 investigations proved him wrong. He told reporters there was more than circumstantial evidence of that collusion. Again, a lie. He said there was collusion of evidence in plain sight. That was a lie. He issued a memo arguing that FISA abuse did not occur. We now know that was a lie. He gave complete legitimacy to the dirty Clinton bought and paid for Russian dossier and said it was all true. Even the New York Times now recognizes it was likely Russian misinformation from the beginning. That was another lie. He said, quote, "We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower. We wish we could." Another lie. And don't forget, Schiff completely fabricated a fake version of the president's call with the Ukrainian president, entered that into the public record. Again, that's a lie. And that's not all. Just today, he's claiming that the Senate rules were nothing like the Clinton impeachment trial. That, too, is a talking point lie, and the media is running with that lie. He also said President Trump tried to coerce Ukraine into interfering in the 2020 election. Nope, that's another lie. All election-related conversations the president had with Ukraine surrounded 2016 and the interference documented in the 2017 January 11th Politico investigative report that, confirmed by a Ukrainian court of Ukrainian election interference in 2016. By the way, separate and apart from Russian interference. The Russians did it. They should have listened to Devin Nunes' warning in 2014. And, of course, Schiff today also claiming the president obstructed Congress. That is a huge lie. The Democrats were in too much of a rush to let the courts resolve. When you have a conflict between the executive and legislative branches of government, well, the executive branch has the ability to seek remedy through that third branch of government. And, by the way, executive privilege will likely get a Supreme Court decision on that sometime in June. They didn't want to wait. They're in a rush to impeach. They had to do it. They never even issued subpoenas now for the people they now claim that they need to prove what is a slam-dunk impeachment case. They got their impeachment. They have the authority constitutionally to do it. I don't believe it was right in any way. Okay, now you have your managers picked. Everyone's sworn in. Present your slam-dunk case. The truth doesn't seem to matter to those throwing what is now a 3+ year temper tantrum. This is a political hit job. This is a partisan smear campaign. This is a dirty trick from beginning to end, and Democrats and their willing accomplices and allies in the corrupt state media mob have not accepted ever the results of the 2016 election. They're now hoping to damage all Republicans, including the president, for 2020. So that's what we're witnessing right now. This is a tale of two Americas here. You got the D.C. swamp Democrats, angry, pathetic, baseless political smear after smear after smear after smear, lie after lie, besmirchment after besmirchment, attack after attack, but do nothing for the American people. Well, President today, he's in Davos, Switzerland, where he's meeting with the top business political leaders from all across the world. There's the president. American economy was the envy of every leader there, booming like never before. Everyone really is envious of your president. And by the way, he has enough respect that he has picked up, and they now know he means business, and none of them want him to challenge them on their trade deals to make them more fair. So they're being really nice to your president. Let's take a look.
Today, I'm proud to declare that the United States is in the midst of an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen before. We've regained our stride, rediscovered our spirit, and reawakened the powerful machinery of American enterprise. Just last week alone, the United States concluded 2 extraordinary trade deals, the agreement with China and the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. These agreements represent a new model of trade for the 21st century, agreements that are fair, reciprocal, and that prioritize the needs of workers and families.
I want to go back to a question I asked earlier. Can you think of a single thing that the Democrats have done to make us more safe and more secure? I can't. Have they done anything for prosperity, job creation? I can't think of that either. It's been a temper tantrum, as I said, for 3 long years. Let's look at what the president has done while being attacked every single second of every hour of every day. Signed the biggest tax cut in history. He cut more burdensome regulation than any of his predecessors. He negotiated major new trade deals people thought could never happen. Mexico, Canada, Japan, our Western European allies, and the big one last week with China, $220 billion for Americans in 2 short years. He pulled us out of the horrendous climate accord. He pulled us out of the horrific Iranian nuclear deal. No more bribing mullahs in Iran. El-Baghdadi and his top deputies are dead. The ISIS caliphate is in ruins, destroyed in Syria. Iran's top terrorist, he's also dead. The American economy is soaring. We are witnessing the best employment situation since 1969 and record low unemployment for women in the workplace. Every demographic, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, almost 8 million new jobs, 8 million fewer people on food stamps in America. Wage growth for low middle income earners is outpacing the top 10%. Oh, that means they're doing great, American workers. We are now energy independent for the first time in 75 years, a net exporter of energy. What have the Democrats done to advance your prosperity, economic growth, create jobs, peace, and security? What have they done to do anything? What have they done to make our country a safer place? In 287 days, you, the American people, will be the ultimate jurors. Clear-cut choice, and that is you get to choose the prosperity, the security, or a party hell-bent on political vengeance and seemingly nothing else. On the 8 years they had, they did add 13 million more Americans to the food stamp rolls. They did put 8 million more Americans in poverty, and they gave us the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s and the worst recovery since the 40s, and took on more debt than all 43 presidents before Biden and Obama. And that is, you now have the chance to shock the world again in 287 days. I take comfort in that tonight.